I spoke to the attorney over there. I'm sorry.
That's all right, Donald.
Pardon me for not acknowledging your fine legal presence.
Mr. Chairman,
Pardon
we're
me for
live.
not acknowledging your fine chairman presence.
That's good.
We're live.
All right, we will call the meeting to order while this meeting's being held in person. And in its entirety will be streamed on the county's YouTube channel, available at https://www.youtube.com/Orange County, Virginia. Limited in-person seating is very available. Very available. We do have a quorum. Looks like everybody's present. Can I have the approval of the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We approve the agenda as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed have the same likewise. Appears to pass unanimously. We have approval of November 4th regular minutes. I seek approval of those by motion, please.
Make a motion that we approve. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We approve these minutes as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed have likewise. Looks like it passes unanimously. With public comment, has anyone signed up for the public comment?
No, sir.
No one has signed up for the public comment, so we will close the public comment. Before we go too far, I'm gonna take chairman's privilege and get Mr. Gillespie to introduce the young lady out there so everybody can stop wondering.
Oh,
And we'll know what that is.
very well, sir. And Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I'm pleased to present and introduce Kira Davis, who has joined Orange County working in the Planning Services Division of the Planning and Development Services Department. And actually, I had, number one, introduced her to one or two of you by phone or otherwise in meeting just in the last week, but also wanted to say that I asked Kira to make a couple remarks tonight. And if she wouldn't mind, I'd like her to come and introduce herself to you. And you'll have plenty of opportunities to meet her one-on-one afterwards and otherwise. But Kira, if you don't mind stepping now. it'd be
All right,
great.
before you do that, spell your first name.
Kira, Kyra.
See, I had it all wrong. That's why I had to ask you to spell it. Everybody's shaking their head. Everybody else spelled it a different way too.
And my last name is Davis.
All right, come to the podium.
I'm previously from Fairfax County with a specialty in historic preservation, working with their historic resources in their planning division. I have my bachelor's in historic preservation, and I'm very much looking forward to getting to know you all as well as getting to know Orange County and its historic character.
Very good. And I'll share that Kira hit the ground running. She very wisely decided not to start the Monday after a holiday week. And we took her up on that. So she's been with us all of 3 days, I guess, 2.5 days, 3 days going into this evening.
Where did you graduate from?
The University of Mary Washington with a bachelor's in historic preservation.
You originally from Fairfax, Fredericksburg, or what? It's not that, that's.
I'm a military kid, so I would say everywhere.
Okay.
But for about the last 10 years, I've been in the Woodbridge area.
Kira shared with us that she's looking forward to a change of pace, bright blue skies, rolling hills in the Piedmont of Orange, Virginia. So she's thrilled to be here for that.
I will guarantee you the latter, but the change of pace, unless y'all are mighty fast, is, I don't know that it's gonna slow down any for you.
I think she meant the change of pace to get through the cars to get to work.
I know, somebody let me pass in front of them, and I was like, oh my goodness, you didn't try to cut me off?
You must have driven on 95 too much like I did.
95 is my life before, so I'm looking forward
Was
to
there anything you want to tell us that we haven't asked? You can feel free to do that now. Because I'm sure before you end your tenure here, you'll be able to tell us where to go on some issues. But we have a pretty relaxed, I'm being rude and not looking at you and talking, I'm trying to cut this phone off.
Not a problem.
I went from iPhone to Android and I'm learning it. So, but if you feel very comfortable to interject if you think you could help us, if we get going down a rabbit hole that you think that could help us, we're not gonna be offended. And don't be offended by anything we say or do either, even if we seem a little critical. It's not that. We're just trying to get the work done. I'll say that in an open meeting there. It's not, we may say the county should have, and you may be the party of the county. Don't take that personal, take it professional.
Absolutely.
Very good, sir.
Any other questions, comments?
Happy to have you on board. Welcome. Thanks for the link.
Absolutely. I look forward to working with you all.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. All right, now we'll go to public hearings, which I don't think we have any, do we?
No, sir.
All right, and now we'll go to our work session, and do we have anything for our work session?
We do not have a work session scheduled. I will note that Mr. Zellmaker, at the end of the meeting, does intend to cover in some substance and a fair amount of time, what would be.
Well, I was going to institute that here,
Okay, well, so
since
right.
that's current, and it's a work session, that you feel comfortable going at this juncture, or you gonna wait?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, I was just hoping you could go here, so, she was able to go to the tour of, Newtown and Williamsburg and that venture, so she wanted to present some of her information findings, and I thought it would be very appropriate for us to get
You want me
into
to
this.
advance, or you want to?
Yeah,
I'll be happy to stand up there and do it
Okay.
for you if you want to sit from your seat. Either way.
I might see it better from over
Okay.
there, I'm not sure.
KYRA.
So we'll need Walker to switch over for us.
Do I need to access your?
You need to state your full name and your address. Jason put me up to that.
We know you.
And is Walker still there, or can we get it on the screen?
Walker, are you with us?
Yeah, sorry, I'm here.
We just need to go to Julie to be able to present on the screen for the commissioners. Can they see?
I can see Newtown.
They should be able to see on the TV. I don't have it set up for the big Zoom room right now.
Okay.
I can see that.
Yeah,
You can see it? Okay.
You're okay with that, everybody? Okay. Thank you, Walker.
All right, well, I was able to take the day off and go with the applicant and his representatives and Josh to this trip to see some comparable developments. And so one of the first places we went to was Newtown. And so this is part of the packet that they gave us, and I think it was emailed out to everyone on the planning commission. And Port Warwick was the third stop on the trip, and the tech center. So this is just kind of some overhead views of it. And then the Wilderness Park Town Center, kind of comparing the two of those. So this was in Newtown, and this was one of the first areas we met and walked through. And there's some really nice things about this area that I liked. We went and saw the commercial buildings and some office buildings, but there's also this multi-use pathway that you see here that was really nicely done with the ability to take a stroller or a bicycle or your family out in this area, and that was along this Ironbound Road, which I think they were comparing that to what it would look like beside Gold Mine Parkway. They also have a reference in this PowerPoint to the page and the design guidelines to kind of compare it side by side. And then this area was in the tech center. This was just kind of showing what that median would look like with the landscaping. And then they put together design guidelines with that. This is something I really like, because if you know me, you know I like cycling a lot. I like the bike lanes. I don't think that's not in the current wilderness plan for this area, but I think it's a nice thing to have, especially safety-wise, to have those markings. And then for stormwater management, the first area that we went to out in Newtown We were kind of standing and looking at different stormwater management in this median. They had some landscaping and different parts for that, different ideas for that. This is an area with that multi-use pathway, and then some, I guess, fast casual dining beside it in Newtown. And this was the area in the tech center. We walked along this road. You can see that walkway. We could barely keep a conversation because it's a very busy road. And so, you know, we talked about that would be really nice if that walkway was on the other side of that buffer, so that you were off of that major road. But they compared that to along Route 3. And this is one of the areas in Newtown that is like their town center concept.
Just out of curiosity, how did they come up with 18 miles an hour?
I did not see that. That is interesting.
Just,
On a hill and thing road.
I mean, that's still, why not 10, 15, 20, but 18? I mean, it must be something that the right,
Because they're trying to get people to drive 25.
okay.
Everyone drives a little bit over the speed limit.
And that's the logical thought, that really is, that's a real logical thought there, it really is. I mean, I give you that, I just don't know if they thought that much into it, but I bet they might have.
That's what it is.
And one of the things they showed us in each of those development areas were anchors for that area. And so in this one, the theater or the cinema was the anchor, and that had this really nice water feature, little ice cream shops and different things like that. Like I could see, you know, people taking their kids there, you know, playing with the water feature, getting them ice cream. That'd be a really nice place to, for the community to, not just the people that live over there, to go enjoy. And then this was one of the areas with retail on the bottom and residential on the top. So one of those vertical mixed use, and it's referenced in there as well. And that's also just a little bit further down the road. And in the same area in Newtown, most of it looked very colonial with the red brick. And this just kind of stood out as completely different than the rest. So that was just something to take note of. And this area of the townhomes was in Newtown as well. And so they're just showing the diversity in the architecture. And this was also in Newtown. So one of the nice things about this is there were these parks in between the homes, so it wasn't just a cookie cutter residential area where you're like looking out your window into the next home. But so there was some division between that. And this area was in Port Warwick, which was really the residential area of that was really nice pedestrian crossways. So I think that's it for those slides. But overall, I would say that it was really helpful for me to see in person kind of what we were looking at just on paper, to visually see that, walk it, and take things that I liked from each one and kind of see how that would be in Orange County. Okay, so that's it.
Any questions?
Well, I mean, I thought most of those looked better than what they've proposed. Did you, I mean, when you go through their current packet, particularly the areas, well, I'll just say it, the issue that some of the things that I took most issue with, which just look kind of your standard big box, like I didn't really see any of that there. These are much nicer designs, I think. Did you, I'm not trying to lead you, but I mean, what was your impression?
Well, there were some areas with big box, like in the tech center, there's Whole Foods and different areas like that, but there were also parks that were connected to it, and then condominiums behind it.
Uh-huh.
So it's more like a horizontal mixed use area. It looked very modern, maybe not so much of what Orange County would look like in the tech center area. I really like Port Warwick, the way that looked. That didn't have the big box stores in it, but I could see, the way that the big box stores were at Tech Center, that looked nice, like that could go beside the residential.
My take on Newtown, and Josh and Brian probably can add to this, is that, number one, it's spread open very much, and we have a lot of green space as well as landscaping that is mature. It doesn't look like the land had been raped and pillaged when it was developed. And the spacing is done in a way that maneuvering around in it is readily available. The other thing about Ironbound Road, from my take in my days there, was it's considered a shortcut between Richmond Road and Jamestown Road. And it also is a sort of a semi-bypass around to get to the back of Busch Gardens, if you want to. It was ideal for what they were trying to do and why they were doing it. And it was, I really like it, and I think it's really a concept that a lot of localities should develop and devote attention to doing so.
And are they, the other thing I noted in their examples was, none of them were the scale. I mean, it's almost like they took the town center part, which probably most of us have less issue with, perhaps, I don't know. But is that phase one, is town center phase one of their current plan? But they can build houses too, right?
And they moved the city and county court system out that way.
Out to Newtown.
Yeah, to Newtown. Have a really nice facility that's.
Yeah, and one of the reasons they did that, because the county, that's what my research is, put a lot of money into the infrastructure. This is chatter of Julie, it's not.
Okay, I'm gonna come back around.
They put a lot of money in that infrastructure, excellent job. And so when I say that, it's, they had to move everything that way, because once you start putting all that infrastructure for water and sewer and building that up, you virtually now can't go back here and start doing it. So that's kind of the happenings of it. How many, Josh, you may know, how many developers were in Newtown? I mean, how many different developers?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I cannot
That's
answer that. I don't know the answer. I will say that like most projects that take place over 20 to 40 years, which is the same horizon, you could parallel Newtown and Wilderness Crossing for a 20 to 40 year horizon for both. You may have individual developers that build, for example, a movie theater, and that's all they build. And that's the one project that they do. There's an apartment building on the backside of the movie theater with residential above commercial. And that may or may not have been developed by others who developed other projects in there. I would venture to guess that the townhouse development was done by someone else and that some of the single family was done by someone else. I don't know that. We can get that information if you like, but I would say there are probably a number of partners who have developed projects in there. But they hang, as Mr. Yancey's saying, they hang on the network of streets that are in there. And you're talking about something else being spread as well, which is over the landscape. But part of that is the network of streets has built a city to be developed. And so they've developed the new town over 20 years at this point, more than 20 years.
So we went there in, 7 years ago?
I think it was 2013.
So 7, 8 years ago. And it was about 20% built up then, I think it was saying. What's the build up now? Anybody know? Talking just Newtown, because when you talk.
You want me to pull it up?
What's
I'll pull it up. You can stay in your chair.
What's the percentage of build up now? I'm curious. What's the rapid pace of it?
Between the city, town, or whatever you want to call it, Williamsburg, there's a big chunk of land that the college owns between the campus and Newtown. So that's really,
Over here.
I don't know if the college has any future plans for it or not. But,
Mr. Yancey, that's mostly the land at the intersection of Monticello and Ironbound. Right, so I've got the cursor, if you all can see that. There's kind of some forested land here. Can you see the cursor move? Okay, so where Julie's photographs were, the theater is located at the head of the main street that goes back to that intersection. All of this has been developed out. So
But
that's-
note something on your thing. What's the average income in Orange County?
Orange County, James City.
No, Orange County.
Yeah, it's in here, let's see.
The average income.
71.
And it's not that much difference between those
Is,
seven is with $15,000.
is that number right? Because there was a different number.
I've seen a different number, but this is provided by the applicant.
Yeah, I'd like to know if that's the anticipated income or the current income of Orange County.
Well, anticipated would be projected over time. I mean, we're in such a volatile time right now.
It's that corridor district.
You really think the average
And that
household
down
income in
there,
Orange,
I would say it is.
in Orange, the average is 71?
There's people voting Northern Virginia, so they make good money.
I don't know, just,
It is higher than a number I've seen in the past. but-
Well, it's really no more than 35,000 for two people working. Really, if you think it's two, if husband and wife both work, it's 35,000 is all they're projected. That's not a lot of money. I mean, that's just above. Huh?
I'm not saying it is.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
just look, if you look at, I was just figuring it out in my head. I was gonna try to use my calculator, but if you look at it, it's just two people in a house working.
I'm pretty sure I saw a different number in their
Oh, I'm not
in their
sure it's not.
fiscal analysis.
It is a higher number than the number in their fiscal analysis.
Right, so. Yeah, that's what I thought, thank you.
It is.
I don't know what that may or may not mean anything, I don't know, but.
So, in terms of developed out, I'm not sure exactly who your authority was who told you about the 20%, because some of the areas along their water features, for example, have been preserved the entire time, and so that's 100% preserved because that's a vital part of the plan. The construction that is underway right now, I mean, I would say this, I can't give you the entire history of Newtown because I don't know it, but I will tell you the core of the main street, the theater, the apartments and mixed-use areas in and around the theater are probably 85 to 90% developed. Maybe a little less than that, but probably pretty close to that. This area is still undergoing some development. These apartments have been built. Townhouses have been built all through this area as well. The single-family homes, this area has been developed. I don't know that every lot has been developed. The development of these big boxes along 199 has occurred. This has just begun development. So this is kind of their last residential development. Again, there are probably some commercial infill and other multifamily things that have been done, but I would say it's the flip of 20 to 80. It's probably more like 80 to 20% developed out, and maybe even a little bit more.
I'm just curious and if my number was right, in 10 years, they built it out, so it's not a 50-year project, it's about 80% means you're about done. So,
That
if
project.
you look at a 20-year, so they did less than 20 years, they built it out, but there's a whole different dynamic there too, because women married, Busch Gardens, all that infrastructure down there is a little bit different dynamic. We have just pushing it that way. It's just for us to, Julie, I want to say thank you for bringing that back in presentation. Those things certainly help us and to see what's going on and see what could be done. And I think that the task at hand is for us to ask our applicant to model behind that in some way. Yeah, and put it in effect there for us.
I, just one more comment. I mean, this is in comparison to where it is, this is, kind of a right-sized project, right? So it's a 20-year project, 365 acres, 1,900 homes. I mean, I'm sure there's some comparisons here, like architecturally, but in terms of Wilderness Crossing compared to Orange County, many residents that it has in comparison to what Orange County is today. I mean, Wilderness Crossing is a much more substantial effort in comparison to Orange County, right? I mean, it's basically increasing the population of the county 10%, 15%, something like that. Not to mention Signature Station, which is already approved. I mean, these projects all together are significant. So, yeah, I don't know. Hopefully the architecture, I mean, I like this architecture better than what they've presented. So maybe that's a bright spot there that we can maybe get them to step that up a little bit for Orange County.
I don't know this, but I would think that architectural, visual look has major influence by the college as well as Colonial Williamsburg, because
Could be,
they made an effort to sort of make it blend. That's my opinion, Josh.
I mean, I'll give you an opinion on that as well. I mean, yeah, the Williamsburg model has been in vogue all across the United States since the resurgence of Colonial Williamsburg in the 1940s and 50s. And so it influenced a lot of architecture. And certainly in Williamsburg, if you don't build a red brown brick with a gable or hip roof, it doesn't fit. And part of the reason Julie wanted to highlight this last building is this is a Newtown building. And I don't think you had a photo of where we started, but it's similar to all the other, office buildings.
And the other one that I was working on, if you wanted to open that one, it's in there.
Okay,
Was that a new building, or was that already existing, they built to it?
all
It
these.
was right beside all the red brick.
Yeah.
No, I mean, was that maybe I asked the question wrong. Was that a building already existing there, or, okay, so it just got to it as an anomaly?
Good.
Was this a
Well,
it's okay.
pecan
It's not a
grove?
bad
This
one.
was a pecan grove before or something?
Correct. So some master plan projects, because they're so large, embrace existing structures, right? And farms and any number of things on the
That's what I was
landscape.
thinking.
Newtown had almost nothing on the landscape except for a pecan grove. And there is a house sort of buried in the back part where those little, the residential area is, but that's it. Everything else was greenfield development, so you don't see a whole variety of other things. Yeah, so this is an outlier, and the person who spoke to this while we were there was Tom Tingle, the architect at Guernsey Tingle, who owns the office building next to this brick building, this white brick building, owns the red brick building. And he talked about how it went through architectural review within the association that controls Newtown as well as through the county. And he talked about how the form and the massing and the detailing of the windows and the roof were what made it fit, even though you're seeing a white building with some black windows that's not,
Color just didn't take it out.
That's right.
Yeah, I personally, I think, a little bit of diversity is nice in architecture. That doesn't stand out as horrible to me.
It's a little brighter on the landscape,
Yeah.
but yeah, as an object, you can definitely compare the two objects and they're pretty similar.
It's also got some young landscaping that I'm sure
It
will
does.
grow up and look quite different, but.
Any other questions?
I'm just curious as to the road network. I know in the design guidelines from the developer, there's all kinds of, 12-foot lane sections, 14-foot lane sections, 9-foot lane. When you have sort of to get to the slower speed, as you were talking about, you don't have to build 14-foot lanes anymore. I mean, that, certainly for maybe the parkway or some of that, but you also have to think about pedestrian. If you're trying to incorporate pedestrian and bicycle, as you mentioned, if you mark it for bicycle, you can have a 14-foot lane, but 3 feet of it or 4 feet of it is for bike. And I think that's something that, there's some of that in the design guidelines, but it's certainly worth thinking about in terms of speed. That's when you're in a development like that, you want to promote sort of a cohesive nature of the movement of people in certain areas, and wide right of ways, And well, just like you said, if we're all walking on a path next to Route 3, you won't be able to hear anything. I mean, and I think that's important. I think that was a very important comment, and the buffers and that kind of.
Actually, it was a good comment, but a heck of an observation that this, you want to stay away from that.
Yeah.
And somebody just didn't think that through. This is what happens when you get the opportunity to see something that's there. You get to see what works and what doesn't work. And that's a,
Newtown has a preponderance of probably more walking lanes or areas than it does biking. The biking is there, but it's the walking. It's my understanding, the whole concept of the development was that they wanted people to be able to move around on their 2 feet to get from point A to point B to point D.
Designing around the human rather than.
Yeah, designed around the human rather than automobiles or some of the motorized type of vehicle.
I would imagine a sidewalk along Route 3 would be quite intimidating.
I could imagine you would have very limited walking.
Yeah, just cars moving.
Maybe a hitchhiker that lost his driver's license.
Sidewalks on cars moving 70.
There's a
miles an
reason
hour.
they say no hitchhiking on 95. There's a reason for that.
Josh will tell you on Richmond Road and Jamestown Road, your life is
You got that right.
in danger from tourists
Yeah.
gawking at buildings and historical things.
All right.
Were there any, just a quick question, you mentioned the parks and the neighborhood parks and some of that, and it sounds like you saw a few of those. Were there any other community sort of so let's say I live not in Newtown, I live somewhere else, across over in the Richmond Road area, is there a park or was there any of that in the?
Well, near to that is, we didn't go to it, but is it Nolan Park, Josh?
The Nolan Trail,
Nolan
that's in
Trail.
Newport News, yeah.
That is really nice.
Yeah, okay.
Is that where they have little concerts?
Um,
Or they had a concert.
but the concert is at Port Warwick.
That's right.
There's a
Okay,
beautiful, field
Amphitheater
there.
outside. Yeah.
And there's a round rotunda type thing, that people were actually taking photos. They'd come dressed up and were taking photos there with a photographer. So I think that's a really nice place to congregate. But I think you can see it on there.
You can, and if I can add to that, Julie, it's the scale of this, it's always challenging when you look at development plans that are at different scales.
Yeah.
And so the Wilderness Crossing project is at a very large scale, and you have to sort of figure out where you are in relation to other things at a one-to-one relationship. So, just to kind of make that same point, you'll see an enormous field of parking behind a medical office building and a hospital that's located on the outer edge of this development. It's a huge, huge area. And it dwarfs what is also a very large green space that Julie's talking about. And I think your words probably carry more weight than mine about the feeling that you get in that green space.
Yeah, that was
So-
my favorite to visit actually.
The Port Warwick.
Port Warwick,
Uh-huh.
it kind of had this downtown feel, which, I would love for there to be a downtown Locust Grove. And
Uh-huh.
yes, this, the vertical mixed use where there's retail on the sides of the park.
Yeah.
It's hard to, because I can't make it larger. But
Yeah, I can make it larger.
So while we're making it larger, these jurisdiction statistics are, who supplied those? Was that what it was when they built this, or this is what it is now, or what?
I would think these are.
Those are from the applicant. This,
from the
Yeah, we can ask them.
applicant,
They're from
They're
Wilderness Crossing applicant?
yes.
They put together those pages and then.
So my only question, I guess, I'll just leave it alone. I don't know why I'm getting on that horse till I get off it. I just, $53,000 ain't gonna buy condominium.
It's, the average income in the United States of America is about $50,000. So I think that's household income. So,
Yeah, but what's the ownership of homes?
well, I don't know, I'm just saying,
I mean,
it's a lot.
the way I'm
Just saying it's, it's,
if it's 50, I don't know, maybe it's just my craziness here.
Well, Williamsburg is a typical college town. There are a lot of single-family homes around the college
Port
campus that
Is that
are
Williamsburg?
rental. No, this is Newport
Newport
News.
News.
No, we're,
That's Newport News.
Fort Warwick's Newport News.
yeah, right, so that's a whole different
Whole
demographic.
different market.
Yeah, completely different. So they're doing the jurisdiction of Newport News, so.
I understand.
Yeah,
I'm just saying that
yeah, it's slow. I'm with you.
it's $15,000 a year for the average rent or buy.
Yeah.
At like $1,200-$1,400 a month, and if you're only making 50, you don't have that disposal of the complete 50. You have that disposal probably like at the worst, at the best case scenario, 45. Just,
Third of it's taxes.
yeah.
It's tough, man. It's, it's tough.
All right, thank you all. We're gonna move on. So anyone stay down there? Julie did, again, a good job with that. Thank you for bringing that report back. And thank you for going. It made things work out pretty good for us. Any new business?
Is this being, did we get this, or is it?
Yeah.
Is that the handout?
Yeah, just a,
Just make sure he gets,
I will.
make sure that's sent to Mr. Deco if you don't mind. Yeah, you can get
And the
it.
handouts from the applicant are, I will bring those after your meeting.
Okay.
I have, if you'll stick around for just a few minutes, I have them down the street.
But I thought that was electronically.
It was electronically sent
Same, right?
around, but yes, but we have some copies, anybody that wants copies.
Oh, okay, so there's what I was looking at earlier then.
Yeah, the electronic will print out like 8 by 11, but he's got a big copy for you.
That's right.
Oh, I don't get the big copy. 'Cause y'all are working on my printer. Just tell you that, y'all are working on my printer. Any new business for us? Mr. Lansing?
No.
Mr. Chairman?
Any old business for us?
Question, Mr. Gillespie, are you gonna tonight talk about the phone call that you had with Energy? Or, I mean, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but did you wanna do that later or?
I will in my report. I have
Okay.
kind of a number of things to touch on. If you want to go on into any of those further, you're welcome to.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Johnson's not here. Mr. Gillespie, you want to go ahead with your report?
Absolutely. First, I want to start out and say our building permits, our occupancies, our inspections remain at, they're essentially not historic highs, but certainly for the last 4 years, level highs. As you all know, and as I previously reported, the board had outlaid some additional funds for a code inspector, which we added, so he's on board. We've made some space for him and have him out going to work, which is great because we have some fairly large site developments occurring, including, of course, the Madison Solar energy generating project. So I had mentioned, I believe at your October meeting, that there was about to be, or excuse me, that there had just been an open house presentation at the Wilderness Branch Library. It might have been your first meeting in November. The boards that were, the foam core boards of the view sheds and the view shed analysis that the applicant had provided for that particular town hall, or excuse me, open house meeting, are now in-house. I received them this morning or yesterday afternoon. So we have them, and we have already put them online, so they're there for people to look at. It's just a series of perspective renderings of what the views look like from Constitution Highway and surrounding properties to be able to put that in some perspective. So they're at your office if you want to come visit. The Planning and Development Services building. They're there. And in addition to that, so James was busy out there looking at solar energy fields as well as other things. We've added an additional person in the Building and Development Services division of the department, and that's our customer service coordinator. That's a Kathy Cash's position, with Kathy Cash's promotion to the manager for that division. So Rebecca Painter joined us on Monday. Kira joined us on Tuesday. So we've had a big and busy full week of personnel changes following the holiday. Rebecca is great. She's already gotten to know everybody in the office and our customers, and has a very calm demeanor, and people like interacting with her. So she's a customer service coordinator. Thrilled to have her there. We have added 3 positions, as you know, in the planning services division, which basically is every position in the division. Rounds it out fully staffed. Thrilled to have Kira on board this week, and starting next week, we'll have Eric Bittner and Carrie Ragland. So 2 planners, Kira and Eric, and Carrie coming in as a senior planner. So we'll get those introduced to you at your next meeting, if not before. I would say I also want to speak to your next meeting, which is December 16th. As you know, your follow-ups are your second meetings of the month by bylaws are not required to be held. So, Mr.
Can you see?
Yes, I'm seeing it. I'm
It
seeing
ain't
it.
happening.
All right. That
Don't
said,
schedule nothing for December 16th.
that said, we have received information from FEMA and the Virginia Department of Conservation and Recreation related to updating the flood insurance rate maps. And to implement the flood insurance rate maps and continue Orange County's participation in the National Flood Insurance Program, there is new model language, new model ordinance language that is proposed. And I had hoped to be able to speak. We have received that just recently, and there is a very short timeline going into May of next year to go through some process for a code change. So I would like to brief you all on that. If you want to get into the details, I can circulate the materials that we have.
You want to brief us on that when?
Well, Mr. Brooks, I'm sorry, we haven't had a chance to talk about this. So I would like to tell you what it is tonight. I was planning to brief you on the 16th if you were going to hold a meeting.
You're going to brief us tonight.
Okay, fair enough. So I will brief you tonight, and then I will circulate the materials. And if you have any questions about it, we can do that.
Okay.
So essentially, the model code language for Virginia communities from the Virginia Department of Conservation and Recreation will update, if enacted, and I've taken the model language and taken all the provisions that would apply to Orange County appropriately into there. We'll be briefing the Board of Supervisors on this next Tuesday. And what it would do would essentially update a flood hazard risk chapter of the code that was established in Orange County in 1997. So we're going, by the time it gets adopted next year, so Orange can continue to participate in the flood insurance, National Flood Insurance Program. The original code is 25 years old. And frankly, a lot of things have changed in 25 years. I will tell you, and you know, a little bit of joking aside, I mean, a little bit of joking, but quite seriously, the level of accuracy of the flood mapping in the last 25 years has increased by leaps and bounds. I mean, the flood maps of 25 years ago were frankly pretty gross level mapping. And so there were a lot of inaccuracies and heartburn of people who had properties either in or out of the floodplain, that at least a mapped floodplain, that maybe wasn't as accurate as what was true. So the level of information that has been provided in the new maps is much greater, much more accurate. People can with certainty feel that they need to get flood insurance or not. However, the flip side of having more accurate mapping and more detailed and comprehensive and better information is it requires more sophistication to manage those programs. And so the ordinance code language that's been proposed by DCR gets into a lot of technical details that were not available in 1997 related to freeboard, base flood elevations, and some of the administrative provisions. And so it suggests that section of code be constructed into the zoning ordinance as opposed to a freestanding section. And it is still allowable under the FEMA regulations to have a program that is freestanding as its own code, but DCR has not provided any model language to do that. So the model language they provided basically presupposes or directs the counties to use, or the cities and towns, to use zoning as the method of ensuring that building permits are properly reviewed as basically a zoning permit. So it's a code change, and it's a big code change. It would essentially get rid of Chapter 34 in the Orange County Code and bring all that into Chapter 70. So in effect, I think it makes a better, cleaner, more mainstreamed program, because at present, floodplain administration is not as clearly defined in Orange County Code as it would be under the code changes.
All right. On a serious note, can we do that after the first year and still be within the time constraints you need?
We can, so that, yes, sir. So the timeframe that we're under is to deliver a draft ordinance to DCR for their review in January, mid-January, which they will return at the end of January. So if we send them something in the middle of January, after your first meeting of the year, your organizational meeting as well, as long as you look at it, and I have the information to circulate now. So anytime between now and your first meeting in January, if you have any questions for me, please contact me. But essentially, I'm just looking for a head nod at a work session to allow us to send some draft information back to DCR. The board also needs to give that same level of endorsement. Yes, we agree that this is the direction we want to go. Once the draft language is at DCR, they'll be sending it back to us essentially in February, at which time we need to schedule hearings. If it's a
Have they given you a template to work from, or have they given you the actual verbiage they need?
It's a 70-page model ordinance. I mean, it's a 35-page model ordinance.
So then, if we just give them back what they want, we're in good shape.
Correct.
And if we start correcting or doing something different from what they want, they're gonna challenge it. We gotta be prepared to, I guess, outwit the challenge.
Correct. I will say their model code is, number one, pre-screened as consistent and compatible with the NFIP, the National Flood Insurance Program, with the FEMA regulations and the Code of Federal Regulations, CFR. And it is also very well footnoted. And so there are some places where technical items are called out as to related to freeboard or some of the other, freeboard is the amount of the building above the flooded way or flood area. And so there are some places where they recommend a quantified number, a value, and they've explained why they are bringing that number into the code. And in some places, they are stating that it is not required, but it is the industry standard, the national standard. And so there are some decision points. If you choose to kind of pick at it, they will, and make changes. If you want to get into those details, I can tell you, you don't have an engineer working in Orange County on your staff who's a flood engineer who can really answer in great detail that information.
Kira graduated from Mary Washington.
She did.
There you go.
She did.
You're now an engineer.
Wow.
Sure, remember I told you earlier, they ignored the board sometimes?
Do I get the pay of an engineer?
I don't know, I don't do that.
See, he's pretty quick there, isn't he?
Question, Josh,
Yes, sir.
once the determination is made of the floodplain area, does the landowner have the privilege of disputing or asking for an alteration or correction
Yes, there was
based
a,
on?
yes, sir, yes. And Tracy can speak to the work involved in preparing for that in 2019 and 2020 before I arrived. There was a massive mailing that went out to potentially affected property owners. Yeah, all the postcards that went out, and so there was, FEMA does a large community engagement, community outreach, and notification process. Of course, we do it for them, but I mean, they require it. So that is complete. That's behind us. Letters of map revision were made because Orange County disputed some of the changes that were proposed, including around Lake of the Woods, and FEMA agreed with those changes. So there's been a give and take in the process, and at this point, we're at the legal, legislative implementation phase. The maps have been accepted, but for the maps to go into effect, there are certain things that need to change in code to be able to administer the new maps, which are separate from the maps themselves.
I noticed when looking at the property cards, it basically says wasteland,
The
floodplain area.
Are you talking about the county's assessor's property
Well,
cards?
how the county assesses it in value, it basically, they say it's wasteland, it doesn't say floodplain.
Yes. I have seen that a little bit. You're probably more familiar with that than I am at this point, but
Yeah.
I have seen that. Yes. I mean, it would be essentially, bottomland, wasteland, floodplain, floodway, flood area. I mean, all those terms have slightly different meanings.
All right, thank you. Got anything else for us?
I got a couple, I'm just curious. So as far as the map, like that's a done deal. Right, I mean, there's no, I mean, if anyone asks me,
Right.
I say, hey, that's already been arbitrated. There was already a period of time where you had a chance to contest the map.
Correct.
We're past that period.
Correct.
So there's really no discussion to be had on what the map looks like now.
The overall map, yes.
Yeah, okay.
However,
Yeah.
any property owner or developer or someone who is trying to assess true and accurate flooding can have a surveyor or engineer create a letter of map amendment
Okay.
and have the maps, because again, these are in big cycles of review, and so
But that's separate from this process,
it'd be an
right?
individual, one-off, ad hoc.
So it's not like we have to approve the map and that's done.
Correct. The map is a technical exercise and it's complete.
And the who, was that a purely board thing? And the administration of the grievances and, you know, all that stuff, that was just handled at the board and the board approved the map?
You
Is that-
speak.
I'm asking, I don't know.
It wasn't a matter of the board approving the map. I think it was more of this is what you have been presented with, and now you can dispute that if you'd like.
You being the public or you
The
being the
public,
board?
yes.
I see.
Anyone who was in a floodplain or potential floodplain was notified.
So the county hasn't been in the position of approving or disapproving that map?
It wasn't up to us
Okay.
to approve or disapprove.
Right, but part of the process of the postcards was
Yeah.
to solicit that feedback for people to tell the county, hey, county, we want you to help us dispute this.
I'm just trying to understand, because if there's people who have had land who maybe didn't know this was going on, and now all of a sudden it's floodplain, and my phone rings,
Sure.
I just want to know what to tell them. So this wasn't like a county-driven,
No.
board-approved, this was, I can just push it off on the federal government, I guess.
Brian, what's the right terminology when transportation disturbs floodplain, they can swap land out?
We go land-based mitigation, I guess.
Yeah.
Land bank.
Could be a mitigate, yeah.
Yeah.
Could be land bank mitigation.
So that can happen with wasteland, a floodplain.
Yeah.
land. It doesn't mean it's eternally designated, it can't be developed, you know, you have to go through all kinds of things with
Yeah.
environmental people to
Sure.
get it corrected, but you have to also substitute the same acreage that you are.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
little more true with wetlands than floodplain, because floodplain has the potential to affect downstream people, and so your activities in the floodplain are not just putting your development at risk, but potentially channelizing.
You can transfer the water, what they.
Right, if you have some
concerned with.
alternative way to.
Yeah, you can transfer the water where it'll flood somebody. We had some of this argument, that's not a good word, we had some of this discussion when Spotsylvania was getting ready to do something, they said it was gonna end up flooding part of Orange County. And all the folks came in and said if they do that, then
Right.
about 3/4 would get flooded down there, and
Yeah.
they came in with a concern for it, so.
I just read something about one of the solar plants somewhere. Or someone, an adjacent landowner had claimed that the
I
grading.
remember reading that.
Affected the floodplain.
When you present the material, so there's a map, I assume would show up on GIS at some point?
Yes, so the map is on FEMA's website now, and we can circulate the address for it, which we did in the cards, right? I think we had in the cards, it linked to our page, a page that we've established and published, and from that page, there was a link to the FEMA page.
And can you see
Yep.
the old map and the new map?
It does,
Okay,
yeah,
great.
it takes a little work to find it, but yes, we
Okay.
can show the comparison.
And then the last question, I'm sorry, I'm just curious about all this. I understand, so chapter 34 is specific to floodplain.
Flood hazard reduction is what it's called.
So when you say incorporate into chapter 70, is it gonna have to be sprinkled throughout the chapter, or is it just gonna be a section in the chapter?
Most likely it'll be.
Is it gonna have to be incorporated throughout?
There'll be a little bit in the administration section, but otherwise there'll be a freestanding section.
So it's not like every zoning ordinance or every zoning district, we're gonna have to like put, it's gonna be a section that's,
It creates, what it does is create an overlay district for flood
okay,
plain areas. And so essentially any property that has floodplain on it
got it,
would be zoned agriculture
Okay.
with a floodplain overlay.
got it, okay, thank you.
All right, anything else?
Yes, sir. And I just wanted to say on November the 18th, I joined Commissioner Sailmaker on the field trip to Newtown and Williamsburg, Tech Center and Fort Warwick and Newport News in that order. And I'm very thankful for the applicant's work to set that up and expose the commissioners and specifically Commissioner Sailmaker in person to some of the features of the developments. And we had a good and robust discussion at all of those places about what worked and didn't work. They have provided the comparable communities layout that you have, and we had some other discussions about presenting exhibits of material. And so I would just say if you have questions, there's a pretty open avenue about those 3 developments in particular. There were some others that we talked about that were in that comparable communities packet. So if you have questions about those, feel free to reach out to me or the applicant about those. Otherwise, on the REZ 2102 Wilderness Crossing rezoning, we have pursued the information provided by Mr. Capel and contacts Virginia Energy related to former gold mines on the property, and a conversation today with 2 gentlemen with Virginia Energy, the director of the department that does reclamation of mineral abandoned and actively abandoned mineral extraction mines. It was very enlightening. They shared some information with Mr. Capel and with us, but specifically with us verbally today, we talked about access. So basically, public hazards if you have an open shaft, right? It's not been capped or otherwise it's accessible, and somebody can fall in a hole. What they do to identify those and what the landowner's liability is about open holes and shafts. We talked about subsidence and what could cause subsidence, and one of the outstanding questions was related to shafts that have been filled with water. What could occur when over time development occurs over the shaft? And there was some discussion about accidental dewatering. What happens if something basically causes that shaft to have an escape of water that essentially it could destabilize or otherwise cause some erosion or deterioration of the open shaft. And we also spoke about contamination of waters, groundwaters, and soils. So it was very helpful in those regards to me. So for you as your staff, we'll be happy to answer any questions and facilitate additional inquiries to them. I also asked them if they would be a resource in person to the commission and the board at a future joint work session, which is planned for this case, as you know, and they said yes. So I would say, that topic, those subjects related to land use and land use controls, which could include fencing of areas not for future development, areas planned for reclamation, all of those subjects. You have resources at Virginia Energy that can help answer that, both by email and by phone to you as commissioners, and to the commission as a whole, in person in a work session.
Can you summarize what they, I don't know how to phrase this, but if the county does nothing, what happens to those mines?
If the county does nothing, the mines are like any other, if it's hazardous, it's like any other hazard on property, which is essentially the owner is responsible for the liability created for any harm that's caused by a hazard that they are aware of and don't protect people from.
And so, I missed the first 20 minutes, but what I heard them say was that, I don't want to frame this inaccurately, but that conditions would from the county perspective, or proffers or however we want to do them, that it seemed to me they felt like that was probably a good thing to do. Would that be, I'm not trying to put words in their mouth, I'm trying to get you to tell, because everyone's heard my opinion.
Correct.
So what did how do we deal with these mines?
Before you answer that question.
Sure.
Let me add this to this. If they weren't developing this property and we were aware of these mines on the landowner's property, what would the county be obligated to do?
The county's not really obligated to do anything.
Okay, what would the landowner be obligated to do?
If the landowner has pollution that is escaping from the property, then obviously they are causing harm, potentially causing harm to others. And they would have liabilities under several federal acts as well as some other types of law that are not just regulatory. As it relates to developing a project though, the county then assumes responsibility and liability as the reviewer and
That's what I was
approver of
trying
those
to do.
development
That's what I
plans.
was trying to do.
So as long as they're using the land outside of any other sort of approval, we're not involved. But when the county is a reviewing and regulatory agency related to land development, then the county assumes responsibility and liability for accuracy of information and for conditions that are created. Now, again, I don't want to expose us to liability we don't have, but there is some obligation the county has to the users of the property. That's why we do planning and development and have planning and development regulations.
So that's where, not to cut Mr. Capello, but I was trying to drive you down a specific road, which I thought he was going because I wanted, I think one thing we may do a little wrong on the commission, sometimes we'll focus in on a applicant and a applicant zoning, and we'll start being critical, and we may want to back up and say, okay, let's not just look at that. It's a mine on Donald Brooks's property. Now, what is Donald Brooks's obligation to do? And then if they were to take this part where the mines were out of the zoning, the rezoning, the county would be what, Eric? Finish that for me.
Can you begin the sentence one more time?
So if an applicant had a mine on their property and they were to take that mine partial out, but the county now is aware of a mine, a potential, let's say it's a hazardous mine. Let's just say we know it's open and it's hazardous. What would the county be obligated to do?
Well, the
If
county
they weren't
has,
asking for a rezone?
sure, if they weren't asking for a reason,
Right.
then we would have authority under the state code to abate a public nuisance.
So the county would tell them, you gotta get rid of this public nuisance and at your cost or the county's cost,
It would be at the defendant's cost. We
at
would-
the owner's cost.
Yeah, if land use were not an issue, that's the way I understand your question. If they weren't applying for any kind of land use permit, a rezoning or an SUP, then regardless, if they were causing a public nuisance, we would have the authority to take them to court and get an injunction against the public nuisance, a court order telling them to stop, and to get damages to compensate the county for the public nuisance.
Okay.
Well, there are exceptions to that, and I think Donald and, I don't know if Jason been here long enough.
Exceptions to what?
The applicant or the landowner being responsible for the cleanup. Gardner Iron Mill, if you recall, he took in all those shavings
I got it.
and it had oil and it leached into the land, and there was a big rebar between the town and the county about who was responsible for cleaning up that lot. And it ended up, somehow they got the federal government, I don't know whether they classified it as Superfund.
There you go.
Issue.
They got a grant to clean up that
Right.
property. It wasn't anything that there was an exception to it. He was required, but the county and the town helped him get that grant and clean that up because it was a nuisance to everybody. So there's not really an exception to it. I guess where I was going with my question is that irregardless whether they rezoned this or not, there's some onus maybe on the owner of the property that would have a potential open mind there to do something with it, is the question I'm asking. And let me just put this out here so everybody can hear. I gotta ask that question. What would anybody do with open mind on that property? I don't know. I'm not that smart. I mean, I don't know.
It's, Yeah, and it's, I mean, I'm gonna, in my comments, I have a couple more things I wanna say, but like, I don't think, I mean, this thing about mines has been percolating around for years, and I've heard it forever, and I don't think anyone really knew, like Big K really knew what was Vaucluse mine. We'd all I think anyone who's been around here knew there was gold mining and all that. And so I don't even think, honestly, I don't know that, I've never met Mr. King, I don't think he knew that document existed about that person that went out there. But now everyone knows. And it's a big K now, we all know. And there's some information in there, I included in the email I sent to everyone here, where it seems pretty clear to me that there's likely, I don't know, but it appears to me there's probably mercury running off that line.
I get that, but what are you suggesting we do?
Well, what I'm saying is, once you big K know, and this is, you can't just let it go. So I don't know if the county has responsibility, I don't know what our role in it is, but if I were in Josh's position or Ted's position, or if I were the board, I'd be running roughshod on the owner and the state and DEQ, and I'd be doing everything I could to get that handled. I'd be going after grants, I'd be going after any means that I could legitimately do to try to facilitate the proper remediation, mitigation
Okay.
associated with that mine. As a county, that, to me, that I would feel, once I know about something like that, I feel a responsibility to do something about it. And so,
Can I answer your question? Eric, can a landowner be responsible for the abatement of something that they did not do or have reported involved?
Yes, I do know that,
Yeah.
it's good to be aware.
Civil liability for
So it's not grandfathered by any.
it's funny how quickly we forget the buyer beware thing that
Well,
we talked about a couple
the other
meetings
point
ago.
about that is, this is my personal opinion, that's why I think realtors and real estate companies should disclose up front when they know there's an issue with
Well,
a piece of property.
But I think, what I don't want us to do, because I've been admonished, so I'm gonna say this before we get too far down this road. I was coached and admonished that we better tread lightly on how much we dive into this mind thing until we get some authority to do and say things. We got the idea that the mines are there, we know they're there, and I was coached and admonished to just leave it at that. Stop commenting on, because we could say there's a mine there 500 times, it's not gonna change a thing. And so I'm gonna ask the commissioners to just, we all acknowledge they're there. We have asked the appropriate questions to what we have to do. The big K is, as Jason says, is there, the super big K. When he said that, I was thinking about Kmart and railways, that's a big K, we know that now. So we have to, what we want to do though, to be fair to everybody, and not to get ourselves in illegal skirmishes. We know there are mines there. Nobody's denying that there's not a mine there. The appropriate people have been notified also. So we'll figure out what they tell us to do that we can legally do. And not close the mine thing.
But I don't understand, because
Yeah, I don't agree.
we haven't said anything, we've made no judgment, we've brought this issue up. And let me just be clear, I said in one of our last meetings, I can't remember which one it was, I wanna know what parcels are being proposed for rezoning, and I'll just preface this by saying, we actually don't have a complete rezoning application, except to the extent they said, we're gonna do this whole 2,600 acres, give or take. And what I wanted to know, once we found out, once we knew about mines, I wanted to know from the applicant, which of the parcels proposed for rezoning had mines on it. So I wasn't making a judgment, I just wanted to know
So
that.
let me answer that for you. You're gonna get that answer.
I hope so.
Well, just chill, I mean, we're gonna get that answer. And you're gonna get that answer and more answers. I can assure you of that.
Great.
But it is not something that the applicant really has at his disposal right now himself. And if you listen to what Jason said, and the reason I say it this way, the applicant is aware there are mines there, but the exact locations, the applicant really doesn't know either, because as Jason said, nobody really paid attention to it until it was brought up. So they're trying to diligently say where they are. Now, Jason did a very good presentation of saying, well, here's where they are.
Okay, I'm not debating any of that, that's not my, you're saying we shouldn't say anything, but we actually
Yeah.
should say whatever we know, and then we should ask questions and get answers,
Well,
and then we'll make decisions based on those answers.
and
So
I guess we'll say, let's give them time to get those answers to us.
I,
They're gonna give it to you.
no objection to that,
Yeah.
but we also know that somebody who owns the property's been dumping trash. So someone knew there was something to dump trash into. So, look, I'm just reading the same reports that you're reading, and I have questions based on those reports.
Oh, you're saying that you know that the actual owner,
No, I don't know who did
Oh,
anything.
okay.
I'm saying that
that there's trash
someone,
being dumped there.
someone dumped
Right.
trash on one. I'm saying only what I read in official documents from the Department of Energy,
Right.
which then says to me, we are
Somebody did
asking
something.
questions about this, and I'm not making any judgments until I get answers to those questions.
And I've relayed that to the applicant, and certainly Josh has relayed that to the applicant. And
So I
That's
don't know
all-
what you're admonishing me or anybody else in this
so,
commission to do.
because, okay, so I'm not admonishing anybody to do anything. I'm just trying to keep us from making this the stronghold of our meetings until we give them the ample time to give us the answers.
Can I make a comment?
You can say anything you want,
So,
Jason.
so like, you know, so now we're gonna be quiet about mines, right? I mean, this was just a little bubble. Everyone knew they were there. No one actually went and looked into them, not even the applicant. Okay, someone decided to make a phone call. You know, I didn't expect that to be there. It's not my document, it's the state's document. It literally took a phone call to find out what was going on there. And, you know, they don't know the locations. The documents have the longitude and latitude. Those mines are documented. I mean, they're documented for 100 years. I've got documents going back to 1928 that say where those are. So, now that someone did the homework that probably, frankly, should have been done when someone bought the property, now we're supposed to be quiet about, no, I'm sorry, like,
No, it's not about being quiet though, Mr. Capel. It's about,
no.
if you, let me see how I can say this so that everybody understands where I'm coming from. So let me try to reiterate it this way. The county legal department, the applicant, and the county's planning department is aware of these mines.
They are.
And they are all working tirelessly to try to give us a solution to this problem and to answer questions to this problem. It's the thought process that there's that somebody's hiding something. If it was hidden, it's not hidden anymore. So give them time to give us the answers. It's all I've been asked to ask the commission to do, and that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Give them time to give us the answers.
Okay, well, you didn't say that.
So
That's not what you said originally.
Okay,
So-
I
so
misspoke,
asked-
Mr. Nichol, I misspoke. I'm not like some folks that in their characterization of things, I try to tiptoe around it, and I probably should not have, so I apologize for that. But I get it from different angles. I don't really know how to explain this. I get it from the commissioners who call me, I get it from the applicant, I talk with Josh, I talk with the legal team, and then I try to guide us the proper way. And I'm not trying to take anything from anybody. This mine is an issue. I just say we need some time to figure out what to do, because the logical thing for me to say for it, and I'll just tell you where I'm at on it, just take that clean out of proposed rezoning, and then whatever issue they gotta deal with those mines becomes separate apart from this rezoning. That would be my suggestion to everybody. That's the reason I asked the
You're
question.
making, you've just done something that you said we shouldn't do. Like, you're saying this is the solution, so
I'm just saying
I
that
don't
was
even
my-
know the answer to the very basic question, which parcels are we talking
Oh,
about?
I
here?
thought you looked the parcels up when Jason gave us the location, because you
No,
looked at.
no,
I'm
time
sorry.
out, hold on a second, let me go back to my comment, so you can understand the reasonableness of what I asked. There are 20 parcels
That's correct.
that are being asked to be rezoned into planned development mixed use. What I simply wanted to know is, where are those mines with respect to those 20 parcels? I asked a very simple question. I've been I'll wait as long as it takes to get the answer. So I'm not doing anything other than asking a question so that we can make a proper and appropriate judgment. I actually don't even have an application that's completed so that we can consider that. They may come in and do what you exactly said here. They may take those locations out, and
So-
they may not. So
hold
we
on
don't
just a
know
second.
anything until we get an application that's.
I made an assumption I shouldn't have made. I assumed that when Jason made his presentation, because you can look at Jason's presentation and you can take that longitude and latitude and put it right there on the spot of what that whole acreage they had there. I made an assumption that you looked at it and said, okay, this is over here and that's not there. So I made an assumption that you did it when you asked that question. So then I was,
No,
my
I just
thought process
simply
was
wanted more
because-
information.
Right, because Jason, virtually, if you look at Jason's presentation, it'll tell you exactly what part of the parcels it is. So I thought that's what you had done, so I apologize for
But
that.
there are 20 individual parcels that are being combined into one, and so I just wanted to understand what it
I
is.
understand.
It's about getting, and so to your point, I actually want full and complete information before I make a decision on anything.
Okay.
And so I support that, and I've been very clear about that from every standpoint. I actually want to see if this development goes through.
I got it now, I got
to
it.
be appropriate development.
I made an assumption I shouldn't have made. I got it.
Chairman Brooks, one
Yes.
other thing. So I presented what I presented, right? And to me, it was fairly potentially serious, right? And so at that point, I'm thinking, okay, well, developers, they're gonna talk with the energy, county, and someone's gonna do something, right? And then they send their preliminary response, and you saw my email, I sent it to all of you. But that irritated the heck out of me. Because I'm sitting here looking at information that they don't have, because they haven't gone and actually done, since that meeting, I don't know what they did. They talked with the state geologist, I don't know. But that response that they gave, I'm sorry, at that moment, they were not really, in my opinion, taking it as seriously as they should. And that's why I sent the second email with additional documents. And especially after I found out they were talking to the same guy I am, and they didn't even mention him in their email. So what's up with that? At that moment, I don't have a lot of confidence that this is all coming together. So that's when I made the introduction to Josh, and I said, okay, look, the county needs to talk to energy. And, because I didn't feel like reading that email response, I didn't feel like they really had a good sense of what was going on. Now, if they want us to be quiet, well, fine, don't send responses that
Well,
aren't completely thought out.
Don't misread that.
And then
Nobody
expect us to
wants you to be quiet, which nobody's asking you to be quiet. We're just asking for time.
Well,
That's what they're asking for time. And if they send a email back to you that's not giving you the appropriate, which I read them, it did not say much. It did not go anywhere close to where it needed to go. And I basically said that to the applicant. Listen, if you think that's gonna hold water, I'm sorry, that bucket's leaking.
well,
That was my exact words, but I still say, in all fairness to you, Josh got them. Josh and I spoke. Josh wasn't happy with it no more than you were. He was trying to get on it. I mean, you were. I go back to what I said. Talk about the mines all you want. Speak about the mines all you want. But we got to get the information in the right juncture before we can do anything. Not that you were going to do something. And I was trying to give, and we really need to give Josh a chance to catch up. Now, I'll say that for him. He needs time to catch up to what you have. It's just not one thing in front of him and on his plate as a county employee. So he doesn't have the time to just dive right in. And he's going to reassign some of that to somebody to take that bull by the horn. He just needs some time to do that.
Well, Chairman Brooks, I don't, honestly, like if I were them, there's no way some idiot on the planning commission would be out in front of them figuring out all the damn information that they.
Well, I can't stop there in California.
Well, I'm just telling you, so I don't
There's
even,
nothing I can do with that.
I don't even put it on Josh.
No, we're not putting it on Josh.
Well,
Just to help us from our perspective.
Yeah, so anyway, so I understand your point, and so I think they're gonna get it together, and I think they can deal with it. They just need to do it, that's all. And so time's fine, it's gonna take time. They need to survey the whole site, but,
That's the key word. They need to survey the site, they need to stake it out to say what's not gonna be, to even get to the point of what's not gonna be affected by it. And I say, give them time to do that. They're holding their own project up, they're not holding ours up.
anyways.
But with that said, and let me say this before we go, by no means am I trying to admonish or stop the commissioners from doing your work. I was just trying to say that we were well aware of this mine.
Well,
I never gave any thought to it, and actually, to tell you the truth, I knew mines were down there because I'm very familiar with that area. I mean, I knew it. It just never hit me like it hit me until you brought it up. I mean, I'm from that area. I mean, I've heard all the stories about ghosts coming up the mines and all that crazy stuff. So I get it. It just didn't hit me. And again, good work, Jason. I will say that you have rapid fire. Some people have slow fire. And I don't mean that in negative terms. You're quicker than others sometimes.
no, I don't think, I don't know what it is, but
You're just quicker.
I can tell you this, it's not my full-time job.
Oh, I get your point.
Yeah.
I get your point. Your point is, if I can find it out in a half an hour, 2 hours, you'll be able to find it out if you're a consultant.
Took a little more than that.
But my point is,
I'm willing to do it, and so anyways, I just hope that they're willing to do it. So.
well, they gotta be willing to do what the project goes through. All right, with that said,
Well, hold on a second. Josh was presenting on this issue. Is there anything else?
I was gonna ask you.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask about the transportation meetings and where that stands.
Try not to be so controversial moving forward,
So-
Josh, would you please?
Hold on, all right.
That was a joke.
All right, Josh, have you finished with mines? That's what I wanna do before we go to transportation. Have you finished with mines? If not, I bet you want to.
Yeah, I've made my report there.
All right. All right, now you can go with transportation.
Thank you, George.
So preceding the visit on the 18th, the former previous Friday on the 12th of November, we had a meeting on the traffic impact analysis discussion with the applicants, the applicant's agent, Mr. Payne, consultants and officials of county administration, county planning and development services, and one member of the board. And so there was a lot of interest in alternatives, proving out alternatives, and why VDOT had essentially made the determination that the traffic impact analysis was incomplete and needed further revision. So following up from that, there has been I believe it's scheduled for next Tuesday. Yes, it is scheduled for Monday or Tuesday. There's a follow-up meeting that's more staff to staff, but basically VDOT staff and the consultant for the applicant and county staff to go through some of the technical issues. So that's moving that part along. Essentially, VDOT said that any traffic impact analysis that goes with only alternative intersection control measures, which would be non-signalized access points, is essentially approvable in terms of their methods. And then, of course, they have to track, the information that they presented, that it would be correct or not. But conversely, any traffic impact analysis that proposes signalized intersections without showing the work of how they concluded that the signalized intersections are warranted with a full description of their alternatives is incomplete. And that's essentially what they being VDOT have told us they have received. And so, unfortunately, it was very late in the game. It was really September before we were getting that information. It was late September before we were getting that as clearly stated as I just stated it. So that piece has kind of picked back up, and I would say similar to the other issue. It's incumbent on the applicant to make sure that the information is actionable. And at this point, VDOT says they cannot accept the TIA in the form that it's in because it lacks information. So they're working diligently on both sides, the applicant and consultant, the applicant and the applicant consultant with VDOT to bring that forward.
And it won't be a complete application in front of us until that's done.
Correct.
And
Because the zoning ordinance code requires a TIA, and the TIA in its current form is incomplete, then it's incomplete.
any questions?
No, thank you. Appreciate the update.
Sure.
Commissioners' comments start?
Mr.
I'm
Chair,
sorry.
if I may.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were done. I
No, it's all right.
apologize.
No worries. So you do have some activities between now and 2022 I want to make you aware of. First is that the Board of Supervisors is having their last meeting in this room, at least regular meeting on December the 7th. And a day that will live in infamy, as you know, anyone who knows their history with December 7th, the day that Pearl Harbor was bombed. But anyway, that'll be their last meeting in this room. And their next meeting of December will be December 21st in the new Public Safety Building with the new Board of Supervisors meeting room. So that will be the kind of the.
So our first meeting in January will be in the new meeting room?
Yes, sir, that is correct. So your bylaws make specific reference to meeting in this room in the board building. So your bylaws will, I assume, not want to meet here, want to meet there. And so you'll want to amend that at the appropriate time.
Put that on the first agenda.
Yes, sir. January 6th is your scheduled first meeting of the year. That will be your organizational
So
meeting.
we will meet before they do in their room?
No, January 6th.
Oh, that's what they do
December
December
21st.
Okay, all right, okay.
Yeah.
Still
You
there.
feel that was right?
Well, I said they were gonna stop that. They ain't gonna sit, we were under fellows, we weren't gonna sit in them seats first.
Chairman Brooks, that's the people's room.
Oh, I'm sorry. We can go back, that's the people's room.
We had talked a couple months back about having an assembly of the commission before a meeting or outside of a meeting if you wanted to, and do some building tours. I had recommended to you that you visit the county's YouTube page where there's a behind the scenes tour, a video recorded tour. If you had a chance to see that or haven't had a chance to see it, I would encourage it. I think it's about 8 or 10 minutes long. It's not real long, but it's a nice little behind the scenes tour from kind of the end of summer when construction was still ongoing. But there's some spaces in there that are wholly unlike the spaces here. You have kind of an outer meeting room that is that allows us to set up some things and for you to be able to access resources that are not just in your meeting room, because we have very little equivalent to that here. So if you want that tour before then, you can take a video tour. If you want that tour outside of a meeting, contact me and let me know, and I'll get you over there one-on-one and we can walk around. Or if you want to schedule that for one of your activities in January, just to take a 15-minute tour around the public safety building.
So what I was gonna strongly suggest is that why don't we, anybody who wants to tour, do it between 5 and 6 before we meet there
Absolutely.
on the first night. If, in that way, we would only be inclined to be there just to get there 5 o'clock and tour around, and 6 o'clock we go in the room. That, to me, that
Yeah, anybody who wants to. And,
keeps us from having to do something.
One comment on the building.
I'm sorry.
No, I interrupted.
No, all I was gonna say is that, and put that on the agenda as a tour, because if we all meet, it'd be classified as a meeting, so that way it'd be part of the, is that okay, Mr. Langston?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, something, just give a look, is the lighting for the public safety building. And it's pretty well done. And I mean, it's the sort of model that, I mean, I'm sure it's secure, it's safe, all the parking lights are lit, but it's hardly visible from 20. I mean, the way the lighting's done is done really, really well. And I would just encourage us to kind of look at that and wonder why other buildings, new buildings can't be as well done, particularly given our ordinance. Like I kind of thought our light ordinance would make it so that buildings were lit that way in terms of lighting, but it doesn't appear maybe that our lighting ordinance is quite adequate enough. Perhaps, give that a look and then give a drive in the industrial park.
Yeah, I think, FAA may have a whole lot to do with that too, because of an airport sitting there, they couldn't have so many bright lights, but, it does look very nice at night. It does set up all over there, it does. All right, anything else?
No.
Mr. Nichol, Commissioner comment?
I don't have any comment.
Ms. Zellmaker, Commissioner comment? Mr. Yancey, Commissioner comment?
No, sir.
I have no commissioner comment. Mr. Capel?
Very quickly, so as Josh said earlier, he's in connection with Virginia Energy. I've got a number of documents that I've sent to Josh. I just got some more, but the files were so big that I couldn't really email them. I had to download them from Virginia Energy. Kira set up a link on Google Drive. And I'm gonna put all of the mining documents there so the county has them. And then anyone who's watching this, the county has all the documents, so you can get them from the county, right? The additional information, they do have information on this Melville mine. They did find some information on that. It's not believed to have mercury, but it does have shafts. It's got about 1,800 feet of horizontal drifts under the ground. It's a fairly large mine. And in 1988, there was a site visit done by the State Water Control Board. Everyone has this document. I would encourage you to read that first page. It's a little eye-opening, and I'll just leave it at that, and we'll see what the applicant comes back with.
All right, do we all agree that, we don't need to have a meeting December 16th?
I don't know.
When was the work session with Department of Energy?
It wasn't
I
a
don't
work
think we
session, it was just a phone call.
Oh, okay. Oh, no, I was saying, I thought we had one scheduled.
I don't
No,
think
no, no.
Josh has set it up just yet.
Oh, okay.
No, and let me clarify to all of you. So the Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commission have jointly said that for this case, that a joint work session of the Board and the Planning Commission is warranted at the appropriate time. And so in that joint work session, you have a number of land use, transportation, fiscal questions to address in this application. And that was some of the guidance that came from those, very specifically the guidance that came from the Board of Supervisors. So in that guidance to you, I would say that in the matter of land use controls and potential effects on the land plan related to mining, that for any expert who needs to be there as a resource for you and the board in your joint work session, the Virginia Energy representatives can also participate. As well as, Virginia Department of Transportation and anyone else.
Josh, one thing we forgot to mention, and that is they suggested the DEQ
They did.
might need to be, maybe not at the work session, but, and I've got to contact the DEQ, they're more difficult, they're not as, maybe they're busier, how about if I put it that way? I think they're busier maybe than DME or Virginia Energy.
That is correct, yes. Yeah.
So we will not have a meeting on December the 16th. solicit a motion to adjourn, unless we got something else to come to our attention. Anybody? So we move to adjourn, is there a second?
Second.
So we move to second, we adjourn, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It appears to pass unanimously, nays. Thank you all for your good work, appreciate it.
Check your time.
Sorry we got off there a little bit, and I know we're not trying to stop.